Okay, before we get started with any activities, especially any vestibular activities that requires the swing, we'll need to set up our environment first. So before we get started, we need to place these mats all around the circumference of the environment, place them forward and back, just in case the child falls in any of these directions. Okay, so when placing the rope, there's a couple different components that we need to be thinking about. So at first, we're looking at this carabiner. So the carabiner needs to be placed into the front like this, as such, placing it like this, and then it'll be attached to this rotary device. So when attaching it, I'll step on the stool because I'm just a bit shorter. And then firmly place it. And then place it as such. And it will also have height adjuster depending on the height of the child. So you would be pressing this lever up to bring it up and down. Okay, so some things you have to be aware of when using the vestibular equipment. Some possible precautions and contraindications when using this equipment. So if the child has a seizure disorder and it's not controlled by medication, and using the vestibular equipment causes the seizure disorder, using vestibular equipment is contraindicated. If the client has a seizure disorder when using the vestibular equipment, and it is controlled by medication, but it is caused by the vestibular stimulation from using the device, the usage of vestibular equipment and visual stimulating equipment is indicated, but only linear, so like going back and forth and side to side for short periods of time. If the client has a seizure disorder and it is controlled by medication or substances, but it is not caused by the vestibular stimulation that comes from using this equipment, vestibular equipment and visually stimulating equipment is indicated, but only in a linear manner. So the first piece of equipment we'll be looking at is called the moon swing. It has this thin top portion with stable wider portion for stability. So to clip it on, you would take the carabiner, place it on the top like this, grab it through the hole, and usually what I do is put my foot on the rope to prevent any movement, then bring it up like this, then hold on to the carabiner and use the height adjuster to bring it all the way up. And typically you would adjust the height to where it meets halfway through the shin of the client. So for example, if I'm the client, he'd be around here. So perfectly like that. Safely get onto the moon swing. You would first ask the client to grab it with both hands and then wrap each leg around, like such. Or bring it under like this, and then wrap each leg around each other, and then slowly sit down and swing. Okay, so typically therapists use the moon swing to work on to help a child work on bilateral coordination, strength, and postural control. So whenever the child is safely off, so typically they have crossed legs, and you would get them off. So when they're using this moon swing, you would be like standing by them, just as a safety precaution. So as the child's off, you would again put the rope towards your foot, get the latch, bring it all the way down safely, unhook it from the top of the carabiner, and safely put it away. Okay, so the next piece of equipment we'll be using is called the platform swing. So to place the platform swing would be very similar to the other swing we just used. So you put your foot on the rope, and then carabiner placed on top like this, through the hole, and then using the latch, you would raise it up, bring it up slow, and you would line it up to half the client's, or to the halfway to the client's shin. So if I was the client, for example, it would be somewhere right here. So I could adjust it to go a little bit higher. Perfect. Okay, so typically a therapist uses the platform swing to work on posture, to work on balance. So they can work on balance on their knees or standing up if the child is small enough. And it's also used to work on balance and helping clients fall safely. So my helper Arfa, she's gonna be getting on. So Arfa, would you just get on the front of the swing? So Arfa would be holding both ropes with her hands, and then she would slowly bend down until she's safely on. Perfect. How's that feel? Yeah. And then I would be holding on so she won't fall, and then you would bring both legs on to the platform. So bring it up like crisscross applesauce. Okay, so when my client is safely off, to disconnect the swing from the rope, I grab it from the bottom first to help with the weight. And then with my foot on the rope, I would help bring it down until it's safely on the ground like this, as such, and then bring carabiner off the rope and safely put it away. So this next item we're going to be looking at is the weighted lap cover. So this is typically used as a sensory tool for individuals who experience sensory overload or sensory sensitivity. So typically placing something such as this weighted lap cover over someone's lap will help them feel calm. So it's used to help individuals with sensory overload to feel calm, self-soothed, regulated, and just overall relaxed and concentrated. Okay, so some typical precautions when using this weighted lap cover. Typically you would use it in a 20-minute intervals, so the 20-20 rule. So have the lap cover 20 minutes on and then 20 minutes off. And you don't want the lap cover weighing more than 20% of the client's body weight. Okay, so this next piece of equipment is called a peanut ball. So the peanut ball is basically two therapy balls almost joined together, with the middle saddle being the most stable part. And when setting up the peanut ball, you'd have a mat around the perimeter of the environment you're using with a crash pad in the direction of where you predict the client will fall. So when you get your client onto the peanut ball, and my client comes in, you first go onto the pad or onto the ball to stabilize it. So you have your client come in and then wrap your legs around it. Like that, perfect. And then you could also facilitate collaboration by being on the other side of the ball and continuing with games. This also works on postural control, bilateral integration, and core strength. You could work on working on your core muscles or your back muscles. Okay, so this next piece of equipment is called the prone scooter board. So some things to be aware of for safety reasons. You would have the crash pad set a bit farther away so they can safely roll onto the crash pad. You would have 3 points of contact, so you would have the knee right in front of the board, one hand on the back and one hand on the board or the child. So before starting, you would have the board flip so the child won't be too eager to use the board. And then when you have the child on the board, you have them go prone with their hands to the side so it doesn't get caught in the front. And then they would be pushing on the side and having their hands up when sliding down the board. This is typically used for bilateral coordination, upper body strength, and motor planning. Okay, Rosie, how are you doing today?
Good.
Are you ready to play?
Yeah.
Okay, so Rosie, what we're gonna be doing today is playing with trampolines. Does that sound fun?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're gonna have these little beanbags right here. Can you tell me which color of the beanbag?
Yeah. Red. Green.
Got it.
Yellow.
Perfect. Okay. So what we're gonna be doing? So
Okay.
can you safely get onto the trampoline? I'll hold you.
Okay.
Does that feel good?
Good.
So you can be jumping around, you can be doing a little turn if you want. I know you love spinning it around. Let's just do this safely.
Okay.
So I'll be within reach. So
Uh-huh.
you have your little crash pad here. So if you fall, just fall back. Okay? But I'll be within reach just in case anything happens. So what we're gonna be doing, you're gonna be tossing with each other, but we're gonna be taking turns. Okay?
Okay.
So you toss the bags to me, and I'll toss the bags to you. Okay?
Okay.
And
Can we start with the red?
Of course, we start the red. And then I will tell you which hand to throw it. You know my right? See my right?
Uh-huh.
To my left. I'll throw it. I'll keep it out. Okay?
Okay.
So let's do it. So you can jump in. You toss the red to my right hand.
Okay.
Thank you. You toss the yellow to my left.
Okay.
Good job. And the last one, green.
Okay.
Perfect. How's it feel?
Good. I like it.
Let's do it one more time. I will toss it to you. Okay.
Okay.
The number one thing to remember, you
Uh-huh.
have to be very careful, okay?
Okay.
Don't just grab it out of the air, okay?
Okay.
Careful when we catch, okay? Green one first. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Yay.
Perfect. Can we use both hands?
Okay.
So it's careful. Okay, perfect. Ready? One more time. 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Good. One last one. Ready? Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2.
Woo! Oh.
It's okay. Let's do that one more time. I think I just threw it a little too hard. You having fun?
Yeah.
Okay, ready? 1, 2. Perfect.
Yay.
Good job, Rosie. Okay, Rosie. So this next activity, we're going to be sliding down the board. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to pretend we're going to go into the ocean. We're going to have to save the animals, okay?
Okay.
So think of your favorite animal.
Oh, I like a dinosaur.
Okay. could you wait on the crash pad for me, and I'll show you how to do it. So
Okay.
perfect.
I'll wait by the dinosaur.
Okay. So see how I do, Rosie, okay?
Okay.
So you're just gonna push off on the side, and then when you're pushing up, when you're sliding down, you're gonna have like a little pterodactyl. You're gonna put your hands like to the side, okay?
Okay.
Okay. Ready? 1, 2.
Woo! That looks fun.
You're ready to try it?
Yeah.
Okay. Set it up for you.
Okay.
Okay. So let's get on it, and then hands to the side of the board, please.
Okay.
Okay. And whenever you're ready, you're gonna place your stomach onto the board.
Okay.
Okay. Remember where we're doing? Hands to the side.
Hands to the side.
Okay. Now you're gonna push off here.
Okay.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, go!
Woo!
Perfect. Go.
Oh, I have to get the. I got it.
Okay. So for the rationale portion of my activities, to introduce my client first, my client's name was Rosie. She's a 7-year-old girl who had deficiencies or impairments regarding issues with social participation. As she lacked a lot of social cues and a lot of skills that needed improvement regarding social participation, her ability to stay concentrated at school and follow directions, and her ability to be gentle with like her fine motor abilities, because she would be breaking a lot of toys and a lot of things that are just around the house. So the first activity involved the trampoline beanbag activity, where we wanted to work on her social participation, as Rosie was perceived as bossy, doesn't really follow directions, wasn't able to maintain concentration and attention at school, lacked a lot of social cues and a lot of skills regarding social participation. And we wanted to work on her ability to be gentle with certain objects. So to add a fun portion, we added trampolines. And for the social participation aspect, we would take turns tossing the beanbags, and I would give her very specific directions regarding which beanbags to toss and which hands. So if I wanted the yellow one to my right hand, that's what I would tell her to do. And she would have to follow it every direction and take turns, because she couldn't continue the activity without me tossing it to her first or her tossing it to me first. We also worked on her ability to be gentle and worked on a little bit of fine motor, where we would have her catch the beanbag gently instead of just grabbing it in the air, or grabbing it in the air, or just like aggressively grabbing it. I also wanted to add a fun component to the activity, because she really likes spinning in amusement parks. So I added the trampolines, where it kind of mimics the movement of like a roller coaster, or like spinning around. She could even spin. I even told her she could spin around on the trampoline if she wanted. And the safety precautions I added were shown in the video. So I added the crash pad behind her just in case she would fall backwards, just predicting where she would fall. And then I was within a safe distance within arm's reach if she would fall forward or to the sides. Okay, so for my second activity, I set up the front scooter void ramp activity to mimic the effect of just going down a roller coaster, because it did say in the prompt that she did love doing activities such as spinning and going on roller coasters. So the two things I wanted to work on were her social participation. So we would take turns. So I go first and mimic the activity. I would just tell her all the instructions she would need to know. So all the safety issues. So keeping her hands to the side and not to the front of the board, so it won't roll over and crush her fingers. Pushing off to the side safely, and then extending her arms out like a bird, and safely crashing onto the pad as the crash pad was put in a safe distance, so she could gently just crash or roll onto the board. And I also placed 3 different beanbags, so the activity was like going down a waterfall and splashing into the ocean to save her favorite animal. And I had her pick the specific big beanbag she wanted to grab, so she can gently pick it up, so we can work on her ability to safely handle different objects, small objects such as toys. So I mimicked the activity, tell her exactly what to do, and then I had her. I followed my safety precautions as I was in a 3-point stance, putting my knee in front of her, putting my one hand on the bag and one hand on the board, and then had her repeat the instructions and safely enact the instructions I gave to her, and safely go onto the board, push off, and safely crash onto the bed.